Chapter 20. I led her quickly along the front street and then I turned into the back lane. I led her past the high back garden walls. "Where are we going?" she said. "Not far." I looked at her yellow top and blue jeans. "The place is filthy," I said, "and it's dangerous." She buttoned the blouse to her throat. She clenched her fists. "Good," she said. "Keep going, Michael." I opened our back garden gate. "Here?" she said. She stared at me. "Yes, yes." I stood at the garage door with her and she peered into the gloom. I picked up the beer and the torch. "We'll need these," I said. I took the capsules from my pocket and these as well. Her eyes narrowed and she looked right into me. "Just trust me," I said. Then I hesitated. "It's not just that it's dangerous," I said. "I'm worried that you won't see what I think it is." She looked at my hand and squeezed it. "I'll see whatever's there," she whispered. "Come on, take me in." I switched on the torch and stepped inside. Things scratched and scuttled across the floor as usual. I felt Mina tremble a bit and her palms began to sweat. I held her hand tightly. "It's all right," I said. "Just keep close to me." We squeezed between the rubbish and the broken furniture. Cobwebs snapped on our clothes and skin. Dead blue bottles attached themselves to us. The ceiling creaked and dust fell from the rotten timbers. As we approached the tea chests, I started to shake. Maybe Mina would see nothing. Maybe I'd been wrong all along. Maybe dreams and truth were just a useless muddle in my mind. I leaned forward and shone the light into the gap behind the tea chest. "Again," he squeaked. I heard Mina stifle a cry. I felt her hand stiffen and I pulled her closer. "It's all right," I whispered. "I've brought a friend," I said. "Like I said I would. This is Mina." He turned his eyes towards her and then lowered them again. I showed him the brown ale. "I bought this as well." He laughed, but he didn't smile. I squeezed through to him. I snapped the cap off the bottle with the opener on the knife and crouched beside him. He tipped his head back and let me pour some of the beer into his mouth. He swallowed. Some of it trickled from his mouth onto his black suit. "Oh, nectar," he sighed. "Drink of the gods." He tipped his head back again and I poured again. I looked back at Mina's dark eyes, looking down at us, her pale face, her mouth, and her open and gaping in astonishment. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Mister had enough of you," he squeaked. "I saw a doctor," I said. "Not Dr. Death, one that could fix you." "No doctors, nobody, nothing. Let me be." "You'll die. You'll crumble away and die." "Crumble, crumble, crumble." He tipped his head back. "More beer." I poured more beer. "I bought these as well," I said. I held out a cod liver oil capsule to him. "People swear by them," I said. He sniffed. "They stink of fish," he squeaked. "Slimy, slithery, swimming things." There were tears in my eyes. "He just sits here," I said. "He doesn't care. It's like he wants to die. It's like he's waiting to die. I don't know what to do." "Do nothing," he squeaked. He closed his eyes and lowered his head. Mina came in beside us and she crouched staring at his face as dry and pale as plaster, at the dead blue bottles and cobwebs, at the spiders and beetles that scuttled across him. She took the torch from me. She shone it onto his thin body in the dark suit, on the legs stretched out on the floor and on the swollen hands that rested at his side. She picked up one of the dark furry balls from beside him. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Nobody." She reached out and touched his cheek. "Dry and cold," she whispered. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough." Are you dead?" He groaned. "Kids' questions, always the same." "Tell her things," I said. "She's clever. She'll know what to do." He laughed again, but he didn't smile. "Let me see her," he said. Mina turned the torch to her face and it was brilliant white with pitch-dark gaps where her mouth and eyes were. "I'm called Mina," she said. She sighed. "I'm Mina," she said. You're Mina," he said, "and I'm sick to death." She touched his hands. She lifted his filthy cuff and touched his scrawny, twisted wrists. Calcification, she said. The process by which the bone hardens and becomes inflexible. The process by which the body turns to stone. Not as stupid as she looks, is she? He squeaked. It is linked to another process, she said, by which the mind too becomes inflexible. It stops thinking and imagining. It becomes as hard as bone. It is no longer a mind. It is a lump of bone wrapped in a wall of stone. This process is ossification. He sighed. More beer, he said. I poured more beer into his mouth. Take her away, he whispered. The roof trembled in the breeze. Dust fell on us. Mina and I crouched close together, our knees almost resting on him. She twisted her face as she caught the stench of his breath. I took her hand and guided it to his shoulder blades. I pressed her fingertips against the bulge underneath his jacket. She leaned across him, felt his other shoulder blade. When she looked at me, her eyes in the torchlight were shining bright. Her face was almost touching his. Their pale skin bloomed in the torchlight. What are you? She whispered. No answer. He sat there with his head lowered and his eyes closed. We can help you, she whispered. No answer. I felt the tears running from my eyes. There's somewhere we could take you, said Mina. It's safer there. Nobody would know. You could just sit there dying too, if that's what you really want to do. Something brushed past us. I shone the torch down and saw Whisper entering the space behind the tea chests. Whisper, said Mina. The cat moved to his side and pressed itself against his damaged hands. He sighed. Smooth and soft, he whispered. His knuckles moved against the cat's soft fur. Sweet thing, he whispered. Whisper purred. The timbers creaked. Dust fell on us again. Please let us take you somewhere else, I said. More beer, he whispered. I held out a cod liver oil capsule. Take one of these as well, I said. He tipped his head back. I poured the beer in. I dropped the capsule onto his pale tongue. He opened his eyes and he looked at Mina deeply, and she looked deeply at him. You must let us help you, she said. He was silent for a long time. Oh, do what you want, he sighed.